Okay, so this is the Daf Yomi. We're in the Gemara Avodah Zarah, Daf 49. So it says at the end of 48, the Gemara adds, and that which Rav Yehuda says that Rav says is also taught in a Braita. So Rabbi Yoshi concedes, and now we're in 49, that if one planted an orla nut or sank the shoot of an orla tree into the ground or grafted an orla tree, that which grows as a result is permitted. So and if you would say that this is not difficult, as Rabbi Yoshi distinguishes between items that are forbidden due to other prohibitions and items that are forbidden due to idol worship, does he indeed distinguish in this manner? But isn't it taught that with regard to a field that was fertilized with dung that came from an animal used in idol worship, and similarly with regard to a cow that was fattened with vetches used in idol worship, there are opposing opinions? It is taught in one Braita that the field may be sown in the normal manner and the cow may be slaughtered and eaten, and it is taught in another Braita that the field should be left fallow and the cow should be made lean, so until the effects of the dung or the vetches have passed. So what is it not that this Braita that rules leniently is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yoshi, who holds that when both permitted and forbidden items contribute to a result, the result is permitted, and that Braita that rules stringently is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis? If so, it is clear that Rabbi Yoshi does not distinguish between other prohibitions and idol worship, as in this case of idol worship, he still permits the result of permitted and forbidden causes. The Gemara answers, no, these Braitot do not reflect the opinions of Rabbi Yoshi and the rabbis. Rather, this Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, and that Braita is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, meaning the majority, who disagree with him. So the Gemara asks, which dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis is referred to here? If we say that it is the dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis with regard to leaven, that dispute does not necessarily correspond to the controversy between these two Braitot. As we learned in a Mishnah, Orla 2:11, in the case of non-sacred leaven and teruma leaven that fell into a non-sacred batch of dough, and this one alone was not potent enough to cause the dough to become leavened, and that one alone was not potent enough to cause the dough to become leavened, and they combine and cause the dough to become leavened, there is a dispute as to whether this dough has the status of teruma and is therefore forbidden to non-priest, or whether it has the status of non-sacred bread. So Rabbi Eliezer says, I follow the final element that fell into the dough. If the teruma fell in last, the dough is forbidden to non-priest. And the rabbis say, that's the majority, whether the forbidden item, the teruma, fell in first, or whether the forbidden item fell in last, the dough is not forbidden unless there is enough of the forbidden leaven alone to cause the dough to become leavened. So, and Abaye says, Rabbi Eliezer taught that when the permitted leaven fell in last, the mixture is permitted only in the case where one first removed the forbidden leaven before the permitted leaven fell into the dough and made it rise. But if one did not first remove the forbidden leaven, the dough is forbidden even if the permitted leaven fell in last. Apparently, Rabbi Eliezer holds that when both permitted and forbidden leaven cause dough to become leavened, the dough is forbidden. The Gemara rejects this interpretation. But from where is it apparent that the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer is in accordance with Abaye's explanation? Perhaps the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer is, as he says explicitly, I follow the final element. If the dough's leavening is completed by the forbidden item, it is forbidden. And if it is completed by the permitted item, it is permitted. And this is the halach of whether one removed the forbidden item or whether one did not remove the forbidden item. Accordingly, Rabbi Eliezer does not necessarily hold that when both a forbidden and a permitted item constitute a result, the result is forbidden. Rather, the two conflicting Braitot cited with regard to a field fertilized with dung used in idol worship can be attributed in accordance with the opinions of Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis with regard to wood from an Ashera tree. So, as we learned in a Mishnah, 49b, if one took wood from an Ashera, and it is prohibited to derive benefit from it. In a case where one kindled fire in an oven with the wood, if it is a new oven, and by kindling the fire he hardened the oven and made it stronger for use in the future, then the oven must be shattered. Since forbidden items were used in the process of forming the oven, one may not derive benefit from the use of the forbidden items. But if it is an old oven, it may be cooled. It is prohibited to use the oven only while it is still hot. If one baked bread with wood from an Ashera as the fuel, it is prohibited to derive benefit from the bread. If this bread was intermingled with other bread, it is prohibited to derive benefit from all the bread. So Rabbi Eliezer says, one must take the benefit and cast it into the Dead Sea. In other words, one is not required to destroy the bread. Instead, one should designate money equal in value to the wood that he used from the Ashera, and he should destroy this money to offset the benefit he derived from the forbidden wood. The rabbi said to him, "There is no monetary redemption for objects that are forbidden due to idol worship. Once the bread becomes forbidden, it cannot be redeemed by having the value of the forbidden wood cast into the Dead Sea." In any event, Rabbi Eliezer apparently holds that the result of both forbidden and permitted causes is forbidden, as the bread was baked with both forbidden fuel and the wood up from the Ashera in the permitted oven. The Gemara asks, if the two conflicting braytot cited with regard to a field fertilized with dung used in idol worship are attributed in accordance with the opinions of Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis, and if this is referring to Rabbi Eliezer's statement with regard to bread baked in an oven that was heated with fuel from an Ashera, then who are the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Eliezer, who hold the other brayta, to whom the other brayta is attributed? So it says, if we say that the reference is to the rabbis, the majority, who disagree with Rabbi Eliezer with regard to bread baked with wood from an Ashera, this cannot be, as they are even more stringent than Rabbi Eliezer with regard to this matter. Not only do they deem bread that was baked with both forbidden and permitted fuel to be forbidden, but they require that it be destroyed and not redeemed. In other words, with regard to the status of the bread, there is no dispute. All agree that it is forbidden. Therefore, the opinions are in accordance with the Braita that prohibits the result of both forbidden and permitted causes. Okay, so if the reference is rather to the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Eliezer with regard to teruma leaven that mixed with non-sacred leaven, as the rabbis permit the mixture as long as the teruma leaven was not potent enough to cause the dough to rise, the more lenient of the two braytot cannot be attributed in accordance with this opinion either. As say that you heard that these rabbis are lenient with regard to the case of leaven, does that mean that they are lenient with regard to cases involving items of idol worship? So as a result of this question, the Gemara retracts its suggestion that Rabbi Yoshi's opinion in the Mishnah is based on the opinion that a result caused by both permitted and forbidden items is forbidden. So rather, Rabbi Yoshi holds that the result is permitted, as is evident from the case of a ground up and dispersed object of idol worship from the case of a planted orla nut. Therefore, the braytot can actually be attributed as follows. This brayta that permits the use of the field is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yoshi, and that brayta that prohibits its use is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, the majority. And as for the Mishnah, which seems to indicate that Rabbi Yoshi holds that when a result is caused by both permitted and forbidden items, it is forbidden, the Gemara explains that Rabbi Yoshi was not expressing his own opinion. Rather, when he said that one may not plant vegetables under an Ashera even during the rainy season, he said so in accordance with the statement of the rabbis that a result caused by both permitted and forbidden items is forbidden. Rabbi Yoshi said to them, according to my own opinion, when both this and that cause it, that is, when both permitted and forbidden items contribute to a result, the result is permitted. It is therefore permitted to plant vegetables under an Ashera during all seasons. But according to your opinion, as you say that when both this and that cause a result, it is prohibited, as seen from your ruling that it is prohibited to plant under an Ashera during the summer because of the positive effect of the Ashera tree's shade, you should concede to me, in any event, that planting the vegetables, even during the rainy season, when there is no shade, is prohibited because they are fertilized by the fallen foliage. The Gemara asks, and how would the rabbis reply to Rabbi Yoshi's point? The Gemara answers, they would reply in accordance with the aforementioned statement that Rav Mare, son of Rav Kahana, says, that when a certain activity causes both a benefit and a greater or equal loss, it is not regarded as a benefit. Here, the positive effect on the plant from the tree's foliage is offset by the fact that its shade prevents rainwater from reaching the plant. Therefore, since there is no overall benefit gained from the Ashera, the rabbis permit planting underneath it in the winter. The Gemara concludes, Rabbi Yehuda says that Shmuel says, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yoshi. The Gemara recounts an incident supporting this ruling. There was a certain garden that was fertilized with dung that came from an animal used in idol worship. So Rav Amram sent a query to Rav Yosef asking what the halacha is in this case. So Rav Yosef said to him that this is what Rabbi Yehuda says, that Shmuel says. The halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yoshi. The produce of the garden is therefore permitted. So the Mishnah now says, if one took wood from an Ashera, it is prohibited to derive benefit from it. In a case where one kindled a fire in an oven with the wood, If it is a new oven and by kindling the fire he hardened the oven and made it stronger for use in the future, then the oven must be shattered. Since forbidden items were used in the process of forming the oven, one may not derive benefit from the use of forbidden items. But if it is an old oven, it may be cooled. It is prohibited to use the oven only while it is still hot. If one baked bread with wood from the Ashera as the fuel, it is prohibited to derive benefit from the bread. If this bread was intermingled with other bread, it is prohibited to derive benefit from all the bread. Rabbi Eliezer says, one must take the benefit and cast it into the Dead Sea. In other words, one is not required to destroy all the loaves. Instead, one should designate money equal in value to the wood that he used for the Ashera, and he should destroy this money to offset the benefit he derived from the forbidden wood. So the rabbis said to him, there is no monetary redemption for objects that are forbidden due to idol worship. Once the bread becomes forbidden, it cannot be redeemed by having the value of the forbidden wood cast into the Dead Sea. Okay. If one took wood from an Ashera for use as a weaving shuttle, or karkor, it is prohibited to derive benefit from it. If one wove a garment with it, it is prohibited to derive benefit from the garment. If the garment was intermingled with other garments, and those other garments were intermingled with others, it is prohibited to derive benefit from all of them. So Rabbi Eliezer says, one must take the benefit and cast it into the Dead Sea. The rabbi said to him, there is no monetary redemption for objects that are forbidden due to idol worship. So now back to the Gemara. The Gemara says the Mishnah presents two cases where Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis disagree. So the Gemara explains, and both are necessary as if the Mishnah had taught us only the first case. Concerning the forbidden bread, one might have thought that it is only in this case that Rabbi Eliezer says that the bread is permitted after casting the value gained from the forbidden wood into the Dead Sea. So because at the time that the bread has finished baking, the forbidden wood has burned up. But in the case of the shuttle, where the original forbidden piece of wood is still extant, perhaps one will say that he concedes to the rabbis that the forbidden garment may not be redeemed. and if the Mishnah had taught us only the case of the shuttle, one might have thought that it is only this case that the rabbis say that the forbidden garment may not be redeemed, because the original forbidden piece of wood is still extant. But in the case of the bread, where the forbidden wood was already burned up by the time the bread finished baking, perhaps one will say that they concede to Rabbi Eliezer that the bread may be redeemed. Therefore, both cases are necessary. So Rav Chia, son of Rabbi Bar Nachmani, says that Rav Chisda says, the Ze'eri says, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. There are those who say that there is a different version of this ruling. So Rav Chisda says, Abba Bar Rav Chisda said to me that this is what Ze'eri says. The halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. So it doesn't change what the result is. It's just the chain of transmission. So Rav Ada Bar Ahava says they taught that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer only in the case of forbidden bread. But with regard to the case of a barrel of wine used for an idolatrous libation, which was intermingled with permitted barrels of wine, the halacha is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. And Rav Chisda says even in the case of a barrel of libation wine, the wine in the other barrels is permitted once the value of the forbidden barrel has been cast into the Dead Sea. So the Gemara relates, there was a certain man, and it happened that a barrel of wine used for a libation became intermingled with his wine. He came before Rav Chisda to ask what he should do, and Rav Chisda said to him, take 4 dinars and cast them into the river, and the rest of the wine will be permitted to you. So now the Mishnah says, how does one revoke the idolatrous status of an Ashera? If a Gentile trimmed dry wood or pruned green wood from the tree for his own benefit, or if he removed from it a stick or a rod, or even a leaf, he has thereby revoked its idolatrous status, as he has proven that he no longer worships it. So if a Gentile shaved down the tree for its own sake, to improve its appearance, it remains prohibited to derive benefit from it. If he shaved it down not for its own sake, it is permitted. And now back to the Gemara, it says, with regard to those shavings that were shaved off for the sake of the Ashera, what should be done with them? So Rav Huna and Rav Huna and Rabbi Chia Bar Rav disagree about it. One says the shavings are forbidden, and one says they are permitted. So it is taught in a Braita in accordance with the one who says that the shavings are permitted, as it is taught in a Braita, in the case of a Gentile who shaved down an object of idol worship for his own sake, as he wished to use the shavings, the tree and its shavings are permitted. The idolatrous status has been revoked from both the object and its shavings. If he shaved it for its sake, that is the idol's own sake, it remains forbidden. But the shavings are permitted. So in the case of a Jew who shaved down an object of idol worship, whether for its sake or for his own sake, the object and its shavings remain forbidden, as a Jew cannot revoke an object's idolatrous status. So it was stated with regard to an object of idol worship that broke, Rav says it is necessary to revoke the idolatrous status of each and every sliver. And Shmuel says an object of idol worship can have its status nullified only in the part of its breaks off in the course of its natural manner of growth. So the Gemara inquires about Shmuel's ruling. On the contrary, can an object possibly have its idolatrous status nullified by breaking in the course of its natural manner of growth? So the Gemara answers, rather, this is what Shmuel is saying. If an object of idol worship breaks down, its idolatrous status is automatically nullified, as the idol worshiper will see that it broke and will no longer attribute any power to it. So it needs to have its idolatrous status revoked only in a case where it broke off in the course of its natural manner of growth. For example, if leaves fall from a worshipped tree, the tree and the leaves retain their idolatrous status. In this case, the idol worshiper will not attribute the fallen leaves to a lack of power of the tree. So the Gemara suggests, let us say that Rav and Shmuel disagree about this. So one sage, Rav, holds that the people worship even fragments of idols. Therefore, the fact that an idol broke does not result in the nullification of the idolatrous status. So in one sage, Shmuel holds that people do not worship fragments of idols. So the Gemara rejects this suggestion. No, everyone agrees that people worship fragments of idols. And here, it is with regard to fragments of fragments that they disagree. One sage, Rav, holds that the fragments of fragments are forbidden, and one sage, Shmuel, holds that fragments of fragments are permitted. And if you wish, say instead that everyone agrees that fragments of fragments are permitted, and here they disagree with regard to objects of idol worship that are composed by segments that come apart and that a layman can reassemble. So one sage, Rav, holds that since a layman can reassemble it, its idolatrous status is not nullified. And one sage, Shmuel, holds that an object of idol worship needs to have its status revoked only when it breaks in the course of its natural manner of growth, as that is its typical manner. So this case where the idol is diminished, this case where the idol is disassembled is not related to its natural growth, and therefore it requires no further act to revoke its idolatrous status. So Hadran alach kol hatzlamim. Oh, wait a second. There's more. I'm sorry. So that's the end of that parak 3 or parak gimel. So here we go. We got 4 other paragraphs here. So the Mishnah says, Rabbi Yishmael says, 3 stones that are adjacent to each other at the side of Mercury or Marculus are prohibited, as that idol was worshipped by tossing stones toward it, which then became part of the idol. But if there are only 2 stones, then they are permitted. And the rabbis say those stones that are adjacent to Mercury and appear to have fallen from it are prohibited, but those stones which are not adjacent to it are permitted. So the Gemara now says, granted, one can explain that the rabbis hold that the idol worshippers worship fragments of idols. Therefore, those stones that are adjacent to Mercury, where it can be said that they fell from its pile of stones, are prohibited, as they are considered fragments of an object of idol worship, namely the stone pile, and those that are not adjacent to Mercury are permitted, as they did not fall from it. Okay, so but with regard to the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, what does he hold? If he holds that the idol worshippers worship fragments of idols, even two stones should be prohibited. If he holds that idol worshippers do not worship fragments of idols, even 3 stones should not be prohibited. So Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef says that Rabbi Yochanan says that in a case where it is known that these stones fell from the pile of stones, everyone agrees that they are prohibited, and this is the halakha even according to the one who says idol worshippers do not worship fragments, as that statement applies only to a form of idol worship where that is not the normal manner in which it is worshipped. But here, where the stones thrown into the pile are broken stones from the outset, this is its normal manner of worship. They disagree only when it is not specifically known where these stones came from. And that is the end of Daf 49.